just working on some other things while my rod's heating up here. This is some of our beginning stages of our cedar eagle whistles that you don't get to see on my website. This one you do get to see though. This is a black lacquered river cane flute. Really pretty, nice looking flute. One that I just got done. Actually, I think Jesse and I were both working on this one at different times, but this is a good guy here. Sounds beautiful, looks really great. A couple of those I've been working on, but actually, most of them she's been working on. There's a few things that I specialize in, and a few things that she does a lot of too. Anybody who doesn't know who Jessie is, that's my wife. She's my camera person now. My oldest boy, River, who was our cameraman for the longest time, has moved up to consultant. So that's pretty much what he does. And Jesse's the one that's recording the videos back there, smiling really big right now. But kind of like our thing, I guess. Any of you that were curious while this rod's heating back up about this cracked piece that flew off here, I like to keep referring back to it. A lot of times in nature, a tree will have a limb that'll break or get bent over to the side, and it'll grow over that. Sometimes that becomes a weak spot, and sometimes it becomes a strong spot. It just depends on the nature of things. It's like that with the world and with us and with this drill press I've had for 10 years. Some of its weaknesses are actually the things I appreciate about it. And some of its strengths are things that, you know, may make it good, may make it bad. But this piece of wood that I put back on there looks like it's holding up pretty good. Like I mentioned, when I go and tune this thing, this flute may actually cut off most, if not all of that. But since it was there and I had measured everything a certain way, I wanted to make sure I put it back on in case I needed some of it. Honestly, you can't tell that it was taken off. And the way that I put it back on was very similar to the way that a tree would have grown back on anyway. So kind of neat. When I'm burning these holes out here, just like with my other flutes, but maybe a little more so, you want to pay specific attention to keeping the knife edge here, the sounding part of the flute. You want to keep it nice and flat. You want to keep them parallel with one another if you can, preferably the same distance. Lots of similarities. Just thinking, you know, like a Gemini. Think about everything being the same way. And we're going to do the same thing back on these guys in just a second. One of my flute making buddies uses mat gas instead of propane like I do. Anybody that doesn't know, mat gas is really hot gas. It's kind of like manganese or something or another. I can't remember. I haven't. As scientifically minded as most of you that know me off the videos as I am, I just haven't spent a whole lot of time looking into it. But that's the yellow bottle at the hardware store. They don't work well with all torches. If I were to put mat gas bottle on this one, it would probably melt the head, the torch head up here. It gets really hot really fast, which is kind of good, but you get into a rhythm sometimes of doing these things. If you mess the rhythm up, you might mess up the whole flute making process. As my wife and I were just talking while I was cutting a piece of wood, actually cutting this little block out that's going to go on the drone, we've seen the sawdust vibrating, and we were talking about the vibrations of things and how important those are, and how just simply placing one hand on this side of the saw while you're cutting causes the sawdust to go that way, or how it causes it to go this way. And these vibrations, the thing that the ancient Hindus talk about, the thing that you even hear about in some Native American original stories, and a lot of New Age stories, of course, you hear a lot about that, but that's because of the vibration itself kind of coming to a head. These vibrations, regardless if you believe in the power of them or what have you, or if you have a strict adherence to some kind of theory of light and relativity philosophy, the vibrations are very important in life. how you are maybe a reflection of the vibrations around you, and how the vibrations around you are maybe a reflection of how they represent what you are. Just kind of neat stuff. When you're sitting here making flutes, and you've got to the point that you can do it in your sleep, you try to think about something to keep awake while you're doing it. That's a pretty sight, seeing a flute maker fall asleep while he's working on flutes. Sometimes I feel like it. Big show next week. Oh my God. But to keep from thinking about, do I have enough clay whistles that we've made? Are there enough ready to be fired tomorrow? Have I got all the orders from the website finished? To keep from thinking about that, I think about vibrations. Something else I should have mentioned too that I've been meaning to, and I'll probably start putting it at the end of some of my videos, that if anybody has a question and you're not sure how to word it, or if English isn't your first language, por favor, pregúntale, or bitte fragen Sie. If you want to ask us in your language, it's fine. Sometimes we use a translator. We've all, in my house, oh my gosh, we've all studied a lot of different languages. So, vielleicht sprechen dich in your home language. And you're also welcome to ask me in broken English. I think most of us here in the United States speak that language. It's probably the base language. Good movie we watched a while back called Idiocracy. Oh my gosh. Lots of dirty parts in it, so if you're young, don't watch it, but from a linguist's point of view, and somebody that studies music and how the world changes, pretty interesting. They talk about the downfall of society and how our languages are changing. I think that's probably my favorite part of the whole movie. Oh, and by the way, if you think vibrations aren't important, why are you making a flute? The vibration of this air going across the soundtrack is what makes it play. There was a theory that had arisen back in the 80s, I guess, shortly after Native American flutes had really started to take off, or really began really in this country as big as they have grown today. There was a theory, probably correct, that was about the scale that these things are made on. Now, this flute actually is going to be tuned to the key of G. It's for someone. The others that I've got, the ones drying and the other fancy ones, I may and I may not tune them to a European scale. Just because I write in Greek doesn't mean I have to write in Greek all the time. And European scales, A through G, are Greek. It's great. It's a mathematical representation of the notes. I mean, it's modern, it's hip. That's the thing that people always ask for. But originally, Native American flutes, and really anything prior to the meeting with the Greeks, weren't, I guess, isolated to these specific notes. There are vibrations in between the notes that are really important. Any of you that know about the new types of harmonics in the world that are being studied, the solfeggio tuning and the vibration of the earth, I think I've mentioned that in other videos, being 7.83 hertz. I mean, 7.83 hertz, I don't think that's really a note. If it is, it's really hard to hear it. But some of the most important things are the ones that haven't been perfected in that particular way, or haven't been denoted, pun intended, in that particular way. And there was a study, as I began to say, back in the 80s, that the minor pentatonic scale that even if I don't tune this flute to a specific European scale, it's going to fall within 60 or 80 hertz, or excuse me, 60 or 80 cents off of, one way or the other, a general minor pentatonic scale. The flute is a minor pentatonic flute. Sometimes some notes are a little more this way and more that if it's made traditionally, and sometimes, you know, if you tune it to the European scale like I'm going to do this one, you may find that it's exactly on the money and still sounds good, but may not sound as good to you as the other way did. Anyway, the study showed that the progression, the minor progression, the pentatonic notes, the 5 notes, you know, basically this one, this one, this one, this one, and all covered. This guy's an octave of all covered. Any curiosity there? But the notes of the minor pentatonic scale actually kind of click within the algorithmic thinking patterns of most humans, and that's kind of neat. I mean, we have 2 eyes, 2 hands, 2 feet, 2 legs, usually. And probably because of the vibration of something else in existence in our universe. Everybody always says, well, what is it that we have in the universe that exists that's like this? I mean, 5, here's your 5 fingers, right? No, actually you've got 4 fingers, which is why there's really only 4 fingerings that you need to worry about. This is your thumb. But you've got 4 fingers, you've got 2 of these little guys, you've got the 2 hands, 2 arms, 2 legs, typically, like I say, most of us do. The ones of us that don't may be very special. Getting off on a tangent here, you ever wonder why I blow instead of breathe in when this thing's smoking? The smoke off of wood really isn't good for you to breathe in, even if it's just carbon dioxide. There's tiny particles of carbon monoxide in it. I breathe out and blow using my breath for something productive at the same time, getting the smoke away from me. Kind of, it's a habit I picked up when I used to paint a lot. Talking about these vibrations, you know, a drone flute. You guys are watching this video because of your interest in the drone flute. It's got 2 chambers, 2 sound holes. But we have 2 of these things, and you think, well, what do they represent in nature? And, well, most research has shown that most solar systems are binary star systems. There's a couple of really neat nebulas that show this. We have 2 stars that maybe have gone nova or collapsed in on each other. But there's an organization called the Binary Research Institute that I've looked into a great deal, and they say that we might even have a binary star system in our own solar system here, which is kind of cool. Neat stuff. But that would explain why we've got 2 of these things that absorb the light from the sun instead of just one of them. Kind of neat. Lots of neat things to think about while you're making flutes. Okay, we are pretty much almost done here. Anybody wondering, yes, the rod is kind of hot. And yes, I don't feel it as much as I used to. Getting hit by lightning makes you lose some of your senses. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, if you noticed, we haven't drilled the holes out for you to blow through. And just to show you, I like to keep them a certain distance apart. And remember, there's a partition in between here too. So each one of these chambers have their own air and own control. So if you decide you wanted to play this type of flute on one side, you can play it without playing the drone, or you can play it with playing the drone. Or if you're playing with somebody else that has a G flute and you want to be their drone, you can play just this side. That would be a whole lot of fun though. But anyway, so we're going to drill this part out here. A lot of guesswork involved, but not really. Let's see. This is my trusty 19/32. Oh, excuse me, 3/16. Used to always use 19/32, but they're a little bit bigger than this guy. So we're going to start our hole going in straight. Be very careful. You don't want to drill your hand, believe me. Speak on experience here. We started the hole out going straight, and then we curved it outward a little bit. Not using a whole lot of force here, by the way. This hole, we're going to line it up, go in straight a little bit, and curve it outward. There we go. Not too shabby. By the way, don't take drill bits out of there like that. This is like a video of what not to do, right? Let's see here. The next thing we're going to do is go ahead and burn out the mouthpiece hole. The reason I do this is because I like it to be larger than the 3/16 hole that I just drilled. The drilling the 3/16 is much safer than drilling it out with like a 5/16, in which case you might get the holes too close together, what have you. I don't know. I just use fire for everything. Is really my excuse. Plus it cleans the hole out really well. Let's make sure that we got both of these sound holes drilled properly. So air's coming out of both of them. What you want to check next is make sure that air doesn't come out of that one when you blow through this one. Nope, and vice versa. Of course, if it came out one, then it would come out the other. But what we wanted to do is basically be able to come through this hole to go to that flute, and this hole to go to that side of the flute, and then that's it. The next part of the video you'll see after we burn these holes out is a finished tuned flute. So if you have any questions, that'd be a good time to jot them down. Email, send us a message from our website, send us from one of our sites that we sell on, like Etsy or what have you, or even from YouTube. We do habitually answer those pretty quick, as quickly as we can anyway. Sometimes we're away at a show or an event. And if we are, it might take us a little bit longer. So please forgive me if that's the case. Otherwise, I usually have some kind of device strapped on me at some time that says ching ching ching, and I'm like, okay, talk to somebody, send somebody a message. So if you're wondering why I answer your emails so quickly, those of you that send me messages and say, how's my flute coming? It's because I'm out here working on something at the same time I'm emailing. Also not recommended. Okay. So, almost finished here. Looks pretty good so far. Got my tracks nice and straight. I've also created this slant inside of here that I've done in my other videos, or if you make other flutes, you know what I'm talking about. This little slanted area in there really helps out a lot with the sound. And I mean, at this point I can probably get it to make a sound, although it's not really intended to play right now. Let's see what happens. A little bit out of tune, but that's because this one's got holes that are the wrong size, and this guy over here is too long. We'll fix that up. You'll see the same guy. Beautiful pattern up here on the top. Beautiful yellow stripe through it. Yellow line on the side over here. Neat knot hole once again, probably going to be gone. Nice knot up here too. Nice grain pattern. But you guys will see that in the finished product here in just a minute. So we finished the drone, and I think it turned out pretty nice. It's a real good playing flute, as I had predicted. Wound up cutting almost, if not all, of the knot hole that I put back on there off, but that's okay. It's part of the process. And got some nice kind of gold smoky colored leather lace that we use on it. It's really one of my favorites. isn't the kind we always use. A lot of times we have flutes with black leather lace or with brown or some other color, sometimes white. So once again, 5-hole flute on this side, has one note on the back of the drone, and that's just to change to this one note right here. I'll play it for you. In the key of G, turned out pretty nice. And for players that don't want to have to keep their finger on that hole down there when they're not using it, you just want to play the main drone chamber. It comes with a nice little wood plug that we fit to it. But that's a finished Native American drone flute. Once again, if you missed the other videos associated with this particular device that we created today, then you may want to go back and watch over them, because there were a couple of other parts to this video, and we even discussed the Colima period where the people in Central America actually had made drones similarly, so it's kind of cool. But any questions, please feel free to send them to us through our website, through Facebook, or through YouTube here. We do answer them, and we look forward to seeing you again. So once again, Charlie Mato-Toyela signing out for Blue Bear Arts and Blue Bear Flutes, and we'll see you again soon.